Millions and millions of dollars. That's enough motivation to kill someone, right? What about a whole family? Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of the Ewell family murders. Viewer discretion is advised. Before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to this channel, especially if you like true crime. My name is Mike, and I tell 3 true crime stories here on YouTube every single week. I also tell short-form true crime stories every single day over on TikTok. The link to all of my other socials will be in the link tree in the description of this video below. But into today's story. Dale Allen Ewell was born on October 11th, 1932, and that was in Oxford, Ohio. Dale would later go on in his life to join the United States Air Force, where he served admirably. And then after that, at some point, he would found his own company called Western Piper Sales. I believe it's where he sold airplanes. I think more of the smaller planes for, everyday people to own. But this proved to be extremely successful for him. He would eventually become a multi-millionaire. He was a very wealthy man. During all of this, in his younger years, he would meet a wonderful young woman named Glee. Glee was born on January 13th, 1935, and she was born in Chicago, Illinois. They fell instantly in love, and that love continued on until the end of their lives, which unfortunately ended well before they were expected to. Glee actually at one point worked for the CIA. She was a translator for them in the 50s and 60s. And then after that, she would be appointed to the State Bar of California on a particular panel that I guess helped with electing or evaluating future judges. Dale and Glee would then have 2 children. First, they had Tiffany. She was born in 1967, and then they would give birth to Dana. He was born in 1971. The kids would grow up basically getting everything they could have wanted because, their dad was a very successful millionaire businessman, and then their mom had a very successful work as well, and so they both brought in a lot of money. They owned a very a nice but quite modest home in Fresno, California, but they also had a beach house. They had really nice cars. But something that people would say about, especially about Dale Ewell and Glee, was that they did not like to flaunt their money. They weren't braggarts. They weren't showboaters. They didn't purposefully have the biggest house in the block and the nicest of nice cars. They had what they needed and then maybe a little bit more. They weren't one to show off. At the time this case happens, Tiffany Ewell is 25 years old, and she is a graduate student. Dana was at Santa Clara University. He had earned or was in the process of earning degrees in finance and business. Dana also had a girlfriend at the time, and that kind of brings us to when everything happened. It was the weekend of Easter in 1992. Dana was actually with his girlfriend out of town. He was actually hours and hours away from the family home. And so on the night of April 19th, 1992, Dana was actually out at dinner with his girlfriend and his girlfriend's parents. His girlfriend's dad actually worked for the FBI. Good luck trying to avoid that kind of scrutiny. So on April 19th, 1992, also, Dale, Glee, and Tiffany, they had been spending that weekend at their beach house, which I guess was like an hour and a half or so, 2 hours away from their home. And so the weekend was over, and so Glee and Tiffany, they got into their car and they drove back to their house. Dale I guess, decided to fly his one of his private jet back to the area and then drive back to the house from the airport. Glee and Tiffany would arrive home first, and then Dale got home like a couple hours later or so. Now, after that, no one had heard or seen from the family members, at least Dale, Glee, and Tiffany, for about a day or two. No one was responding to phone calls. It was just, they seemed to just fall off the grid for a couple of days. So on April 21st, 1992, the housekeeper for the Ewells arrived to work. And when they entered the home, they found out why no one had seen the family. Because the family was dead. Dale, Glee, and Tiffany had all been shot dead inside their home. Tiffany and Dale had both been lying face down in a pool of blood, and it appeared that both of them had been shot through the back of the head once. Glee Ewell was found face up. She had been shot, I believe, at least twice. So the housekeeper obviously calls police, and police arrive. They do confirm that all three members are deceased of the family. They discover that a total of, I think, 5 rounds were shot. 4 hit their targets and 1 did not. Whoever had done this, police noticed that they collected all of the spent casings from the bullets. As they're searching the home, the house appears that it had been gone through, that someone was rummaging through stuff, like drawers were open, there was crap all over the floor, and it had the appearance of like this may have been a robbery that was interrupted by the family when they got home. But one of the detectives kind of looked at this crime scene, and he had been doing this for many, many years, and he said, this doesn't look authentic. This looks like it's staged to look like a robbery, because nothing was really actually taken. And another reason that they began to realize that this was probably staged, they had found out that Tiffany and Glee had driven back to their home when Dale had flew back. And they knew that they would have all gotten, so Tiffany and Glee would have gotten home a couple of hours at least before Dale. So the fact that Glee and Tiffany were shot and then Dale was shot means that whoever did this literally waited for Dale to come home. Like, they didn't just, this wasn't an interrupted burglary. Someone sat there and waited because Dale hadn't gotten home with Tiffany and Glee. So this was something different. This was something planned. Whoever did this intended to kill all the members of the family. Luckily for Dana, he was 200 or so miles away. He was having dinner with his girlfriend and his girlfriend's FBI father. So he had a rock solid alibi. They knew he didn't do this. He didn't pull the trigger and kill his family because he was hundreds of miles away. And how lucky for him. So back at the house, as they're investigating, they notice that there is no forced entry. There's no broken locks. There's no broken, door frames or hinges. There's no broken windows, no screens knocked out. Also, they had an alarm system in their home. That system was armed when the family had left the house, which means either the killer waited for the family to get home and then followed them inside, or whoever the killer was knew the code to stop the alarm from going off. And then they got into the house and they waited. And they determined that it was the second scenario, more than likely, that the killer already knew the code to the house, because they found in a safe that Dale Ewell owned was a box of 9mm bullets that he had purchased like a decade or two before this. Like, they'd been in his safe for a very long time. Well, later on, those 9mm bullets that were found in Dale's safe were the exact bullets that were inside the victims. They were killed with Dale's bullets, but not by Dale's gun. But that's when they realized that the person had gone into the house before the family, got into that safe, took those bullets and loaded that into their gun, and then waited. Who the hell would do that? Who would know the code? How did they get in the house? Well, as they're investigating Dale and they're investigating Glee just to see if they may have had any people in their past that may have wanted to do this to them. Dale had, I guess it had at one point sold planes to a person who would eventually become convicted of drug smuggling. So they looked into that angle. Was this like retaliation for that? They really dug thoroughly into that line, and they came up with nothing. They determined that that was not the motive, and that had nothing to do with this. Glee, she worked for the CIA. Did she ruffle any feathers there? Did she help capture someone, that wanted to take revenge? Well, they looked thoroughly into that angle as well, and everything to do with her life, any past exes or anything like that would have been pissed off for either, partner. Police got nothing. They came up with absolutely nothing. There was even a point where I think Dale's brother was a suspect for a moment because of there was like a business deal that had gone really wrong years prior that involved both Dale and his brother Ben, and it cost like millions of dollars. And so did Ben get really pissed off and this was his revenge to his brother? No. They determined he had nothing to do with the murder. Who the hell did this? This is insane. Okay, so all of these people in their past, no connection to this. But it was someone who knew how to get into their home and turn off the alarm. This is someone who knew that Dale had bullets in a safe. How did they get into the safe? This had to be someone they knew. What about Dana? Well, it can't be Dana because he was 200 miles away, right? And that he had an alibi. He was an FBI agent who literally said he was with him at dinner when all of this would have happened. Couldn't have been Dana, but maybe. So they start looking into Dana, and they realized that Dana was now going to inherit like $14 or so million. A lot of money because of this. Had it just been Glee and Dale that were killed, Dana would have inherited only about $7 million because his sister would still be alive, and both of them would have gotten an equal share. Now, the investigators said that Dana did appear to be genuinely distraught over the murder of his entire family. He seemed to come off very emotional. He reacted the way a person should react, or is expected to react, I should say. And it seemed legit, but very quickly became very involved in the will and, well, who gets the money? He didn't really get so much involved in trying to find out who killed his family as much as, all right, well, they had a will, right? Let's look at the will and see, let's work on getting this money. Like, okay, bud, calm down. Your family's dead. Like, chill. You'll get your money. Let's find out who did this. Dana even offered a reward to catch this killer. He played the part. Now, a couple of days after the investigators were done, really kind of tearing the house apart to collect evidence, Dana reportedly invited friends over to that house with blood still on the walls and gave them a tour of the house. That's a little unsettling, a little creepy. So investigators, they go to Dale's school and they're questioning people there, and they come across something throughout the testimony of numerous people. Dana had been boasting about his business, his very successful business where he had earned millions and millions of dollars. He was bragging that he was a self-made millionaire, that he was a very successful businessman, and he just knew how to do it. He was great. Well, he didn't own a business. He wasn't a self-made millionaire. His dad was. He was essentially taking credit for everything his dad had worked his entire life for. He was putting all of that success on himself, Dana. So police then kind of dig a little further into that. They uncover through, I guess, family members had told police that when Dale and Glee found out that Dana was lying and boasting and bragging about all of this, him being a self-made millionaire, what the family says is that Dale then had a plan that once Dana was graduated from college, he was going to cut him off financially. He was going to support him through college, but then once it happened, he was on his own. Dana may have been not cut out of the will, but the amount of money he would have gotten would have probably been a lot less. So investigators looked at this as, well, Dana maybe found out that his dad was planning to cut off finances to him and planning to possibly lesser his reward in the will. And so maybe Dana took action before his dad could do anything like that. Through their investigation, they found out that Dana had a friend at school named Joel Radovich. Joel was someone who was involved in drugs. I believe he had been arrested in the past for drugs. Not exactly an upstanding citizen. They found out that because I guess Joel, after the murders, was now living with Dana, or at some point had lived with Dana after the murders. And he'd also dropped out of school shortly after the murders. They'd found out that Joel, along with Dana, were making these bonkers purchases of things that cost a lot of money. Joel is not a successful person. He does not have a wealthy family. How is he making all of these lavish purchases all of a sudden? So police, working on a hunch, got a warrant, and they would be able to track and trace Dana Ewell's pagers, I know, oh my God, those ancient devices we used in the 90s. And they got a warrant to basically surveil both Joel and Dana. They had been following them both around for a while, and that's how they kind of discovered that Dana and Joel were communicating by pager and payphone system. And so they followed Joel to, I guess, a 7-Eleven, where he went to a payphone after looking at his pager, and he was talking on the payphone. Well, one of the officers, who was in plain clothes, went to the payphone next to Joel and was just listening to what Joel was saying. And he was pretending to be on the phone and talking. And they actually had a recording device on them, and they recorded Joel saying, "They don't have enough evidence on you. They are going to try to catch you in a lie, so don't play their game." That's what he said on the payphone to who they presumed was Dana Ewell. They also caught Joel talking about, well, I don't want stock purchases, or I don't want stocks. I want cash, $100,000 cash like I was promised. So they were starting to catch on to this, like, okay, Dana and Joel may actually have been involved in this murder, and Joel may have been the trigger man since Dana was away. Forensic evidence was also collected, of course, and at the house they found these fibers, these greenish, kind of light greenish fibers that they would later determine came from a tennis ball. And these fibers were next to the bodies and on some of the bodies, and well, what the hell does this have to do with anything? Tennis ball fiber? So they were kind of just wondering, okay, what's this about? They also determined that the gun used was likely some type of 9mm assault weapon. So as police are trying to find purchases of a weapon like this, they come across that an individual did purchase a gun like that named Jack Ponce. That name stood out to them because Jack Ponce was actually a friend of Joel Radovich. So it was beginning to look more and more like, did Dana hire Joel to kill his family to get the money? Police go to Joel's dorm room and they say, listen, we think Joel killed your family, your friend. Joel was like, what? And he come up he was trying to pretend like he was shocked, but he wouldn't confess to anything. Oh yeah, okay, you got me, I was involved. And they just said that he came off as fake surprised, and also he seems to look defeated in a way. And so police left, and then because they have everything tapped and everything, right after police leave, Dana immediately calls Joel. So they would arrest Joel Radovich and also arrest Dana Ewell. Unbeknownst to Dana and Joel, they had more evidence. Joel's own brother, Peter, he had basically told police he had helped Joel make and fasten a homemade silencer to this 9mm assault weapon. The silencer was made of tennis balls, hence the green tennis ball fibers found at the scene. I believe they had other pieces that were used for the silencer, but that just helped them explain those fibers. And then through that, Jack Ponce would then finally basically admit he purchased the gun for Joel. Peter also tells police he helped dispose of the gun. He, along with Jack Ponce, did that. They told them where they could find the barrel of the gun or the long piece. I'm not a gun person. And they had buried it in this like empty lot. And so this is now like 2 or 3 years after the murders took place. That's how long this investigation took. So they went to that empty lot, or they hoped was empty, to dig up that gun piece. And lo and behold, that lot had still not been used. It was still just an empty dirt lot. They dug up where they said it was. They found the disposed piece of the gun. They attached it to, I guess, a gun, and they fired test rounds through it. They then took the bullets found in the bodies, and they compared it to the bullets fired from that missing piece. They were an exact match. So Peter Radovich and Jack Ponce, they had agreements to testify against Joel and Dana. So they were both given immunity for any involvement they had in this case. Dana Ewell and Joel Radovich were each charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. The trials wouldn't really begin until 1997 or so. They had a lot of evidence to present. There were several witnesses, but they were able to show all of the forensic pieces, the green fibers, the gun barrel that they then showed matched the bullets that were found in the bodies that they test fired. They had the sworn testimonies of the 2 men who took an immunity deal. And most importantly, they had the fact that Dana Ewell was collecting this money, and that the motivation for all of it was he wanted all of the money. All of it. They also had the recordings of Joel on the payphone saying, "They'll never catch you," basically, and "give me my money." So essentially, the prosecutors presented their case that Dana did not want to wait for his parents to just die of natural causes. He wanted the money now. He also didn't want to share the money with his sister. He hired Joel, or convinced Joel, to basically take out the hit on his family, his own family, his parents and his sister. Dana had the absolute perfect alibi. He was with his girlfriend and her FBI father, 200 miles away, meaning there's no way he could have pulled the trigger. But they had the evidence to show that Joel was asked to or hired by Dana to go into the house. That's how the alarm was off, because Dana gave Joel the alarm code. Dana gave Joel the combination to the safe. He said, "These are where you can find the bullets." He took those bullets, Joel, loaded it into their gun with the makeshift silencer, and he waited. He waited for the family to come home because Dana had told them where they were. Tiffany and Glee, they got home first because they drove separately because Dale was flying his private jet back. So Tiffany and Glee walk in the house. Joel is hiding. Joel fires a round into Tiffany, the back of her head, kills her instantly. They believe that he shot Glee, but she didn't die from that, and that she had managed to turn over. And because she had another bullet, I guess, in the front, either at the front of her head or in her chest. I'm not 100% sure. So they believe that Glee literally saw the man who was doing this, and that Glee at that point knew who Joel was. She knew that Joel was Dana's friend, and that she probably in that moment realized that Dana was doing this, that Dana orchestrated this hit, that her own son was killing her family. And then she was shot one more time and killed. Then the evidence shows that Joel had no choice but to sit in the shadows and wait because Dale wasn't with them. Dale came home an hour or 2 later. And then, as Dale walked in, he shot him in the back of the head. Unbeknownst to him, he left tennis ball fibers from the makeshift silencer. At Joel's apartment, they found a container of green tennis balls. They took the fibers from those tennis balls and they were in an exact visual match to the fibers found at the crime scene. Joel, along with Jack Ponce and Peter Radovich, then took the weapon apart and buried the pieces where they were later found 2 or 3 years later. Police confirmed that that was the exact gun barrel that the bullet would have passed through to kill all 3 family members. And they have the evidence to know that that piece was on the gun that fired the weapon by multiple testimonies. The evidence was unbelievably overwhelming. I mean, there was just, it was clear as day. These guys were really, really bad at orchestrating this murder. They were awful at it. The only thing that people were felt off about was that people felt Jack Ponce was actually more involved in this than he let on. But they didn't really have the exact evidence to really prove that. And he'd already been given immunity. So Dana Ewell and Joel Radovich were both found guilty of all charges. They were convicted, and during the penalty phase, there was the option of life in prison without parole or the death sentence. The penalty phase, I guess, initially ended in a mistrial. There was a deadlock. They couldn't decide on which punishment. And so it would then go to the judge for his decision. And he defaulted it, essentially, to life in prison without parole. So both men are now serving the rest of their lives in prison, and they will both never breathe free air again. Dana Ewell is now rotting in a prison cell for the rest of his natural life because he wanted millions of dollars. Don't we all? Don't we all want millions of dollars? But most of us wouldn't murder our families to get it. Most of us know that there is a line that should never be crossed, this being one of them. 3 people gunned down, essentially, figuratively, by their own flesh and blood, their own family. 3 people gunned down for millions of dollars. 3 innocent lives lost forever because one person felt they would be better off dead so that he could have God knows how much money. Well, Dana Ewell did just that, and he didn't get away with it. So Tiffany, Dale, and Glee all got the justice they so rightfully deserved. But that is it for this case. True crime, a Rooney Dooney Dingleberry dongles. Stupid. Once again, please subscribe to this channel if you are into true crime, you big weirdo. And also follow me over on TikTok. Again, the link is in the link tree in the description of this video below. I also have a Discord. Be over the age of 18 if you're going to join it, or else you'll be kicked out. I also sell merch. We ship all over the entire world and even ship to other planets. So, just in case. Because if there's other life forms out there and you're seeing this video, hi, first of all, please subscribe. Whatever language alien you speak, please follow here, because I would love otherworldly travelers to follow this YouTube. Also, this is just me attempting to get aliens to admit that they're real. So please comment below, aliens. We'll decipher it with the government if it's not in English, but what am I doing? What am I going on about? I don't even know. I don't know. Aliens are real. The government confirmed it. Myth not busted. Myth confirmed. What? I don't know how to end my videos. You could just say goodbye. You know that, right? I do know that. I do know that. Shish kebabs, they're good. Let me go on for about 2 hours about why shish kebabs are good. I use camel hump meat for my shish kebabs. And